Yo guys, what's up? Sleepio here. Today I wanted to show you my status effect builds, one for PvE and one for PvP. I've been seeing more and more of those status effect builds with fire in PvP recently, so yeah, I decided to also make one just for fun. I mean, I'm not seriously playing PvP really, but it's a fun build to troll here and there. So I decided to just make my own build. I mean, I don't know if it is my own build to be honest, because I don't really watch other YouTubers, so I can't tell if somebody already made it or not, but that way I also can't really copy something, right? However, I will start with the PvE build first. Two things before I get into the build. First up, please don't tell me in the comments that I cheated my SHD rank. I play every day for over 10 hours and target practice is my best friend when I'm not streaming. No need to tell me that I exploited my way up to this level. And second up, I think that this PvE build is not for everybody. It's viable for like 5% of the players that can actually run legendary missions efficiently. The build is really good in legendaries, but it is not really needed for everything lower than legendary. Like in heroic, you can just play tank healer and then double DPS, that works perfectly fine. But in legendaries, if you run the mission fast, then a status effect build is really helpful, especially if it's a good player with a good status effect build, because then your damage dealers don't need a healer or a tank even. I am personally not very good with this build, so I will not show footage of me playing it in PvE. But let's get into the build now. So, for the PvE build, I would recommend using the Survivalist specialization, simply because you get the Fire Nade. The Fire Nade is the best CC nade in the game right now. It's really good, and since you have a lot of status effect duration, that also increases the burn of the Fire Nade. So, that's really beneficial. You also get 10 protection from elites, which is small, but at least something. And the medkit or the armor kit is really good because it also applies to your group members. If you're struggling to get to 6 skill tiers, you could also play Technician, since you do get a skill tier in here, but then you don't have the Fire Nade. You have an EMP Nade instead, which is not bad, but the Fire Nade is way better. So yeah, that's the specialization that I would choose, simply because the nade is really strong. For the guns, there's only one gun or one talent that you really want, and that is Perpetuation. I don't know if I pronounced that correct, but yeah, that talent right here. The perfect version is on the Everlasting Gaze, that is MK17, the named MK17. So headshots grant 50% status effect damage and duration to the next status effect you apply. Cooldown is 16 seconds on the perfect version and 20 seconds on the non-perfect version. So that is really nice. Not the damage, but the duration. 50% more duration on like a blinder Firefly that blinds your enemies for a really long time. You will see for how long very soon, but that is really strong. Trust me on that one. You don't need the perfect version, but if you have it, then I would just play it, right? Before I go over the gear, I wanted to show off the skills. So what most people are running and what I would recommend as well, for legendaries, I would run the EMP pulse and then the blinder Firefly. So the EMP pulse obviously disables all the robodogs and the roboters, the drones, all of those. It's pretty useful. It also EMPs normal ads, of course, but that's not the main reason you're playing it for. It's mainly for all the electronics, the dogs and all that, just to disable them for quite some time. The effect duration is 14 seconds, so that's pretty good. The cooldown is actually lower than the duration, so yeah, it's really nice to have that. And the second skill that you should definitely play for PvE is the blinder Firefly. So right now with this build I have a cooldown of 20.8 seconds. That is pretty short. I think with a normal damage build you would have like 45, 46. So 20 is pretty good. The max targets are 10, so you can mark quite a lot of targets with that. And the blind duration is 23.4 seconds. In PvP it is 9 seconds. So even in PvP, that is pretty good to play. Because being blind for 9 seconds in PvP or 23 in PvE, well, you can imagine that is pretty strong. And that's the two skills that I would recommend using in PvE. You could also swap to the shock trap here and there, but it is pretty situational, so I would just go for those two skills and yeah, just learn how to play them perfectly, I guess. So let's get to the gear now. I will start with the brand sets first and then go over to the attributes and talents. As brand sets, I would recommend the Hannah U One Piece for 10% skill haste, the Golan One Piece for 10% status effect, then the 3-piece China Light for skill haste and status effect. The explosive damage is a nice bonus, but pretty unnecessary since you don't play any skills that do explosive damage. And lastly, I would play Improvised Holster. That's a non-brand set holster. The benefit with this one is that it has a mod slot, as you can see. And normally only the chest, the mask, and the backpack have a mod slot. But every non-brand set item has a mod slot. So that is always a pretty good filler item, not just for this build, for any build, probably besides a damage build. But whenever you want an additional mod slot and you just don't want to fill it with a brand set that you don't want, you could just craft one of those non-brand set items and get a mod slot for free. It's pretty good. I just found it out a few days ago. I actually wanted to keep it for myself, but other people already talked about it, so no point now. Just use it as long as it's in the game. I don't even know if it's intended or not, but it is a pretty nice bonus. As attributes, you want skill tier on everything, of course, and as minor attributes, you want status effect and skill haste. That's the only two you're really looking for, because status effect to increase the duration and skill haste to get the skill spec faster, of course. As backpack talents, you have like two options, I think. You could either play Energize to overcharge yourself and use a medkit. That's nice, I guess, but not really needed. Because yeah, the overcharge makes all the skills insane, but on skill tier 6, with my build, the Blinder Firefly, for example, is already kinda insane, right? The other skill you could use on the backpack is Creeping Death. When you apply a status effect, it is also applied to all enemies within 5 meters of your target. Cooldown 20 seconds. So that's the two talents that I would probably recommend using. Or you could also use the named backpack, the Costa Go Back, because then you overcharge yourself when you damage something with a grenade. That has an internal cooldown of 1 minute as well, though. The good thing about the backpack is that you get 10% status effect as like talent on the backpack. And you also have skill, haste, and damage, and then of course the mod slot. So you will not really lose any status effect duration, because, well, either you have it as an attribute role, or if you play the backpack, then you have it as talent. As stress talent, you have a few more options. To be exact, you have 3. So either you play Unbreakable, because it is just really nice to have, like getting nearly 100% of your armor back when it's depleted is pretty good, especially in Legendary, where you get beamed so fast sometimes that you can't even react. So Unbreakable is pretty nice, especially since you have to go close sometimes to use your skills on the enemies. Then you could also use Trauma, which is definitely a little bit worse. You apply the blind status effect when you hit a headshot, and the deplete status effect when you hit a chest. Both have a cooldown of 30 seconds, so I think that's more of a PvP talent and not really PvE. But yeah, it is also an option. And then lastly, I would recommend Efficient. Using an armor kit has a 50% chance to not consume the armor kit, and the specialization armor kit bonuses are increased by 100%. So that might actually be the best with Unbreakable. I'm not quite sure which I would prefer. I don't have either of them. But Efficient looks definitely pretty interesting, especially since you basically only consume half of your armor kits. And that is the status effect PvE build. So to summarize quick, you want to play the Survivalist specialization for the Fire Nade. You want to have this talent, either on the named MK17 or on any other gun. Then you want 1-piece Hannah U, 1-piece Golden Gear, 3-piece China Light, and 1 non-brand set item, for example the holster in my case, to get another mod slot. As skills, you want the EMP Pulse and the Blinder Firefly, at least if you use this build in Legendary missions. Alright then, let me get to my PvP version of this build, and that one is looking a little bit different. So, as guns, you could play the Eagle Bear. If you don't have it, not a big deal. I just play it to get the damage reduction from Tenacity. Pretty nice, 40 to 80% less damage. I mean, I didn't really play that build too much in PvP yet, so I don't know if it's actually worth. But, I mean, most of the time you will only use the Everlasting Gaze again, or any gun with this talent, to get more status effect duration and the damage. So gun-wise, it's not changing too much besides the sidearm, because the specialization you want is the Firewall specialization, and with that you get the Firestarter shotgun, and the special talent on this one is Primer Rounds. Damaged enemies lose 50% burn resistance for 5 seconds. So with Firewall you get 20% burn duration, that's pretty good. You get 30% health on kill, kinda useless, and you get one of the best armor kits. Your armor kits recover 200% armor and 200% health over 10 seconds. So that's pretty nice. And you also get the shotgun I just mentioned. As skills for this build, I would recommend the Firestarter Chem Launcher. I do in PvP 573k damage right now with the mods I have, and the burn damage is 44k for 10 seconds. The cloud duration is 25 seconds, my cooldown on the Chem Launcher is 18 seconds, so I get the charges faster back than I would consume them if I don't spam them at least. Sometimes you of course have to spam them since you can't hit every Chem Launcher shot. So that is definitely the main skill I would play, and as second skill I would play the Big Shield, because it also scales with skill tiers, and it has 13 million HP. So you just pull out the shield, then the Chem Launcher. They can't really shoot you, even though you're really squishy, because you have the huge shield in front of you. And then you just use the Firestarter Chem Launcher and burn the players. The only downside to that build is that if you're really tanky, you can first out heal it. And if you run close to that build, then, well, the user, in that case myself, I would set myself on fire with that build and I would die instantly, because the PvP burst damage and overtime damage is way too much, since my armor is really low. But let's get to the pieces now. So this one is also quite simple. You want 2-piece Hannah U for skill haste and skill damage, and 3-piece Wyvern for skill damage, status effect, and skill duration. As exotic, I choose to play the Imperial Dynasty, the holster. That's a pretty nice talent. While in combat, applies burn to the enemy closest to you within 20 meters. Cooldown 40 seconds. 20 meters is actually quite big, but it only applies the burn effect to the closest enemy, so only to one enemy, not multiple. But I still think it's pretty nice to have, and I don't know what other exotic I could run here. It always comes with the same attributes, always skill tier, status effect, and hazard protection. On the other attributes, you want skill tier, of course, again on everything. And then on the attributes, you want a mix of status effect, skill haste, and skill damage. I guess most of it should be status effect, and then you want a mix of skill damage and skill haste. For the mod slots, I would again go skill haste. I didn't even mod 2 of my pieces here, but we'll do that later. As backpack talent, you can go for the same talents that I mentioned earlier for the PvE build. I choose to go energized. I think it's pretty nice, especially for PvP. You will get damage here and there, and then when you go behind cover, then the Chem Launcher will get really insane. Because, let me see, on skill tier 6 you get 135% radius instead of 30%. So that is literally 100% more radius. And you get more burn duration. The damage and the ammo count stays the same. But the radius is actually insane if you overcharge it. And on the chest for PvP, I would definitely go Unbreakable. I sadly don't have one yet. That's just a random talent. I would not recommend using that in any build. I just had to reroll skill damage here to make the chest work. But if you have a good chest, either Wyvern or Hannah U, then I would definitely try to get Unbreakable, or maybe the Armor Kit talent. But for PvP, I really think Unbreakable will be better for you. Alright, and those are my 2 status effect builds. The one for PvE is, as I said, really good for Legendaries, and the one for PvP is just annoying. But I guess in times of Corona, it can be fun to spread some Corona in-game as well. So why not, right? It's not my personal playstyle. I don't think I will play this build too much. But if you want to trigger players, I think it's a good way. I've already got some good reactions. Sadly, all when I didn't record. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you like my content and want to support me, make sure to drop a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. See you in my next video. Bye!